Batman. Batman, Batman, Batman. Batman. We all know him, so no need for explanations. Look at all the Batman media and all the Batman comics from the last few decades, and there's no question how saturated Batman is in popular culture. But I'm here to take you on a guided tour of the earliest incarnation of Batman during the golden age of comics that lasted from the late 1930s up until 1956. Here's what everyone with passing knowledge of Batman can tell you about. Bruce Wayne / Batman. Wealthy socialite by day and Cape Crusader by night, and sometimes the day as well. Batman made his first appearance in the year of 1939 in Detective Comics issue 27, which established the basics of him being a costume vigilante with a secret identity who fights crime at night with his utility belt. In the very next issue, the Batrobe was introduced to the utility belt, and a few issues later, the Batarang was added to Batman's arsenal. For the first few years, he was usually referred to as The Batman instead of just Batman, until about the end of 1942. The Batsuit went through a few changes in the first year of Batman, with the first Batsuit originally having a cape shaped like bat wings, extra pointy ears, and short purple gloves. In Detective Comics issue 28, he had no gloves. In issue 29, he wore short blue gloves, and his gloves got longer and more gauntlet-like until finally getting the fins in issue 37. This version of Bruce Wayne was inspired to make a batsuit when he saw a bat flying past his window, remarking that criminals are a superstitious, cowardly lot, and that a bat would strike terror into their hearts. Commissioner Gordon. James Gordon, the Commissioner of Gotham City Police Department, is unknowingly associated with both Bruce Wayne and his Batman persona. He enjoys Bruce Wayne's company as a friend and works with Batman in solving crimes, summoning him to his office with the bat signal whenever he needs Batman's help. He also made his first appearance in Detective Comics issue 27, making him the oldest Batman character along with Batman himself. Dick Grayson, or Robin. Where would Batman be without his friend, ward and sidekick, Robin the Boy Wonder? Robin burst onto the scene in 1940 in Detective Comics issue 38, the son of and co-performer of a couple of acrobats whose act was fatally sabotaged by mobsters. Dick Grayson was adopted by Bruce Wayne so they could fight crime together, with Robin's acrobatic skills and the common motivation they have from their parents being taken out in front of them by criminals. The first page of his introductory comic compares him to Robin Hood, so if you thought his namesake was the bird Robin, incorrect. His fights with his enemies are characterized by his use of puns to the chagrin of both the villains and Batman. The Joker. Oh yes, the Joker. Everybody loves that crazy harlequin of hate, from the filthy casuals whose only knowledge of Batman villains is the Joker, to your friend who thinks that this is a cool idea for a Facebook banner. Once he slunk onto the pages of Batman issue 1 in 1940, his trademarks were there from the beginning, with his purple suit, Joker venom, and elaborate schemes. The reason why he has green hair, red lips, chalky white skin, and what looks like blue eyeshadow was kept a mystery for 11 years until Detective Comics issue 168. Where the mysterious Red Hood is revealed to be the Joker, and his origin is revealed that in an attempt to steal $1 million from a playing card company, the Joker was foiled by Batman and escaped by swimming through chemical waste that gave him his clownish appearance. Catwoman. Real name Selina Kyle, Catwoman was also introduced in Batman issue 1, where she didn't have a cat-themed costume yet and was only known as the Cat. From her very first appearance, there was a romantic spark between her and Batman. Later on, she went by the Cat-hyphenated Woman, and wore a cat mask and cape, then an outfit that looked like a fursuit, and then eventually a purple costume that looks more like the classic Catwoman look. You might be surprised to learn that Catwoman has a change of heart in Batman issue 62 in 1950, where a blow to her head reveals that she has had amnesia for 10 years, caused by when she fell out of a plane just before a crash when she worked as an air stewardess. Yeah, that's totally how amnesia works. Regaining her memory, she swears off crime and is on the side of law and order for the rest of the Golden Age. Catwoman stopped appearing by the end of the Golden Age because the newly brought in Comics Code Authority prohibited characters on opposite sides of the law to be romantically involved with each other. Again, she stopped being a criminal years before being axed as a character, but I guess she already had the reputation by that point. I just want to extend a monolithic middle finger to the Comics Code Authority for killing off EC horror comics in the 50s. They made the old witch cry, and that's unforgivable. Two-Face. Before becoming Two-Face, Harvey Kent was a district attorney who was the victim of an acid attack in court, leaving half of his face disfigured, which made him lose his fiancée and scare passers-by, leading to him becoming Two-Face. The damning evidence for the crime boss who threw acid at him was a two-headed silver dollar, which Harvey kept as a memento. One side of the coin was damaged, and Two-Face saw the symbolism in this, so he would make decisions by flipping this coin, and developed an obsession with the number 2, doing things like riding a motorbike because it had 2 wheels. And yes, I've been calling him Harvey Kent, not Harvey Dent. His original surname was Kent, but it was changed to Harvey Dent in Batman issue 50 in 1948. What sets Two-Face apart from other Batman antagonists in the Golden Age is that he has a happy ending. That's right, he only makes a few appearances as Two-Face, then comes to his senses, gets a light sentence due to temporary insanity, gets plastic surgery to look back to normal again, reunites with his fiancée and goes back to his normal life. And even becomes friends with Batman and Robin. Why did he stay around without being Two-Face anymore? You'll find out later. The Batmobile. Everybody knows about the Batmobile, but before it was this uniquely stylized car you would only see Batman ride in, his very first mode of transportation was a normal red car of the 1930s. A year later, in 1940, the car stayed mostly the same, but it was now a convertible and was blue, and then was red again the next year. By the end of 1943, it became a customized dark blue car with red stripes, a fin on the roof, and a bat face on the front. In 1950, in Detective Comics issue 156, the Batmobile was destroyed, but Batman designed a new one that he envisioned as 10 years ahead of any cars of 1950. This Batmobile had a more sci-fi look than anything from before and would be Batman's ride for the rest of the Golden Age. Martha and Thomas Wayne. Batman's parents are instrumental in how Batman was created, since them being shot in front of a young Bruce Wayne is what led to him growing up to become a vigilante. We learn about this in Detective Comics issue 33 in 1939. They rarely appear in the Golden Age other than the occasional flashback to when they were shot. Neither were fleshed out much as characters until the very last month of the Golden Age in Detective Comics issue 235, when Batman learns from an old film and a diary that his dad once went to a masquerade party in a costume similar to the Batsuit and defended himself from armed robbers. It's revealed in this story that Batman decided on dressing like a bat because subconsciously he was remembering seeing his dad dressed in a bat costume. The Penguin. Oswald Cobblepot, better known as the Penguin, first waddled through Gotham in Detective Comics issue 58 in 1941. He was characterized by his bird-themed crimes and use of multiple umbrellas that could be used as weapons or to dispense handy supplies. The Penguin was one of the 3 main antagonists of Batman, along with the Joker and Catwoman throughout the Golden Age. The Penguin disappeared after 1953 and didn't come back until well into the Silver Age. The Bat Signal. Since it first shone over Gotham in Detective Comics issue 60 in 1942, the Bat Signal has been operated from the police headquarters to summon Batman when Commissioner Gordon needs Batman's assistance. Alfred. Bruce's confidant and butler Alfred has been seen at Wayne Manor since Batman issue 16 in 1943. This incarnation of Alfred first introduced himself at Bruce Wayne's door, informing him that his father Jarvis used to be Thomas Wayne's butler, and now, after a career as an actor, Alfred has returned to the family tradition of butlering for the Wayne family. An amateur sleuth himself, Alfred quickly susses out the true identities of Batman and Robin and becomes the only one to share their secret. While in most continuities Alfred's surname is Pennyworth, the original Alfred's surname is Beagle. At first his appearance is also different from what you'd expect, being short and stout, but months later his appearance was changed to thin and lanky, inspired by the Batman film serial that came out the same year, with the explanation for this being that he exercised himself into this shape at a health resort. Throughout the Golden Age there would occasionally be Alfred-centric stories, and he dabbles in detective work, and sometimes a story would have a twist ending that it didn't really happen and it was just Batman fanfiction written by Alfred. The Riddler. The iconic, green-clad, too intelligent for his own good mastermind who plagues Gotham with crime and Batman with riddles. For a character who became such a staple of Batman's rogues gallery, Edward Nygma, more commonly known as the Riddler, had only a brief original run. He only had 2 appearances during the Golden Age in Detective Comics issue 140 and 142 in 1948. Like the Penguin, he wouldn't appear again until the mid-1960s. Casual enjoyers of Batman will recognise much of this. Like when someone told me on a Twitch stream that he prefers Batman over Superman because, and I quote, "Batman has weaknesses, like his love for Robert." Detective Comics, the namesake of the company DC Comics, the longest running comic book in the world and original home to Batman stories. From issue 27 onwards, Golden Age issues would have one Batman story and several other Batman stories from characters nobody cares about anymore. Sorry, Captain Compass. Batman Volume 1. Once Batman was popular enough, he got his own comic book that was exclusively Batman stories. This was standard for popular characters during the Golden Age, like how Superman, The Flash, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman got their own comics. Vicky Vale. Vicky Vale made her debut in Batman issue 49 in 1948 as the spunky photographer and journalist who makes it her job to try to uncover Batman's real identity and eventually becomes a love interest for Bruce Wayne, unaware that he's Batman. Her role in the Batman story she's in is similar to Lois Lane in Superman comics, though Vicky Vale made sporadic appearances every once in a while throughout the latter half of the Golden Age. Joe Chill, a scummy hitman who tragically ended the lives of Martha and Thomas Wayne, which sent their son Bruce on the path of becoming Batman. When Batman's origin story is retold in Batman issue 47, Joe Chill's story comes full circle when a now adult Bruce Wayne tracks down the man who murdered his parents. It's easily one of the best Batman stories from the Golden Age that I'd recommend to anyone. In the very last month of the Golden Age, Joe Chill was reinvented for the new Batman continuity that will go on to be called Earth 1, where instead of being just a mugger, he was a hired gun who was paid to kill Thomas Wayne. Hugo Strange, the sinister professor who was one of Batman's oldest adversaries, he only appeared 3 times during the earliest Batman comics. First in Detective Comics issue 36 in 1940, where he creates a fog machine to make it easier to commit crimes, then in Batman issue 1 where he creates a serum that turns men into giant monsters to do his bidding, and a third time Detective Comics issue 46 where he uses a fear dust he invented to make the police too scared to intervene in his criminal activities. After this, he wouldn't appear until decades later. Killer Moth, one of the few Batman villains from the 50s who has remained one of the regular crowd, even if he doesn't get the same respect as the rest. After leaving prison, he adopted the identity of Cameron Van Cleer and used the money he had stashed away to buy a mansion and lead the life of a wealthy socialite. He then became Killer Moth, a deliberate mirror image of Batman, who he studied in prison with his own secret cave, vehicle, and moth signal for criminals to send for his help. His origin was in Batman issue 63 in 1951, and he only made 2 more appearances during the Golden Age, in the next issue of Batman and in Detective Comics issue 173. And say it with me now, he wouldn't appear again until the late Silver Age. The Batplane, the go-to way for Batman to fly. In Batman issue 1, Batman first took flight in the Batplane, which was originally a single-seat plane with bat-like wings, an uncharacteristically anatomically correct bat's head on the front, and a mounted machine gun. You can tell this was early because of Batman using any sort of gun. Months later, the Batplane was redesigned with a roof, without a machine gun, and with the bat's head looking the same as the one used on the Batmobile. 10 years later, in Batman issue 61, a new Batplane was created, with the bat's head only being painted on its nose cone, and more importantly, it could convert itself into the Batmarine in the water. Scarecrow. Jonathan Crane was a fear-obsessed university professor who donned the alter ego of the Scarecrow to start his criminal career. The first story of the Scarecrow was in World's Finest Comics issue 3 in 1941. He only made 1 more Golden Age appearance 2 years later in Detective Comics issue 73. Not appearing again until decades later. The Batboat. Whenever Batman and Robin needed a boat, their Batboat would conveniently be there. It was pretty much a regular speedboat, sometimes brown, sometimes blue, and sometimes red. The Mad Hatter. Inspired by the iconic Lewis Carroll character, the Mad Hatter was a diminutive crook who made his first appearance alongside Vicky Vale in Batman issue 49. I like how there's no explanation given for why he dresses like the Mad Hatter. It was just accepted by this point that these are the kind of miscreants who operate in Gotham City. The Mad Hatter was one of the lucky ones who only had 1 appearance during the Golden Age but was brought back as a recurring character decades later. Deadshot. Starting himself as Deadshot, the millionaire marksman known as Floyd Lawton put on a facade of being a crime fighter so he could build up trust with Batman and Commissioner Gordon before killing Batman and becoming Gotham's new crime lord, only to be figuratively and literally unmasked by Batman and Robin. Excluding his 1-panel cameo in Detective Comics issue 169, Deadshot's only appearance was in Batman issue 59 in 1950, long before he started regularly appearing in DC.
It's good to be in DC!
Hooray! Hooray!
The Batcopter. While the idea of Batman having his own helicopter is pretty common in more recent versions of Batman, there was 1 Golden Age Batman story with a Batcopter, sort of. In Detective Comics issue 171 in 1951, the Penguin created the first Batcopter, which looked like a large bat with a helicopter that Batman commandeers by the end of the story. There wouldn't be any sort of new Batcopter until, you guessed it, the late Silver Age. Batwoman. Much like Bruce Wayne, Kathy Kane was a rich socialite who used her physical skills to become a bat-themed vigilante. Only while Batman's motivation was the tragic death of his parents, Batwoman did it because she had a crush on Batman and wanted to imitate and work alongside him. She drove a motorcycle and at first was seen as an annoyance by Batman and Robin. She first appeared at the tail end of the Golden Age in Detective Comics issue 233 in 1956. and was a staple character of Batman in the Silver Age until his revamping in 1964. But that, my little gummy bears, is a subject for another time. The Bat Cycle. Batman and his accomplices have used plenty of Bat-themed motorcycles throughout the years, and the first and only one from the Golden Age was used by Batwoman in her first appearance. Ace the Bat Hound. By 1955, writers were encouraged to make Batman more like Superman, so it wouldn't surprise me if that's why they gave him his own equivalent of Superman's dog Krypto, with Ace the Bat Hound in Batman issue 92, a German shepherd who would help them with cases from time to time. At first he was owned by a man called John Wilker who would let Batman and Robin borrow Ace, but he was eventually left to Batman after Wilker got a job in Europe. This is where it gets deeper into Batman lore, where some entries have been pretty much forgotten while others are the origins of things still found in Batman media today. Justice Society of America membership. If you watched my Iceberg video on Golden Age Superman, you would know that while Superman and Batman were only in a few issues of All-Star Comics, they were made honorary members of the Justice Society of America in issue 7 of All-Star Comics. The Justice Society of America was the Golden Age version of the Justice League of America. Honorary Gotham City Police Department membership. Batman was juggling honorary memberships since he was also made an honorary member of the Gotham City Police Department in Batman issue 7 in 1941. Believe it or not, for the first 2 years of Batman he was under suspicion by the police until they were clear he was on the side of the law. The 1943 Batman serial. This is where Batman hit the silver screen for the first time. Back then, cinemas would show film serials, which pretty much worked like a TV series in that you would come back to the cinema to see the next chapter in the film serial. Like I mentioned before, this serial is why Alfred changed his appearance into what you'd expect Alfred to look like today. Being made during World War II, this was used as a propaganda film with pro-American war effort and anti-Japanese themes. So instead of Batman battling the Joker, Catwoman or the Penguin, the villain of the story is a Japanese saboteur named Dr. Daka. The Batman and Robin serial. 6 years later, a sequel serial was released. In terms of writing, pacing and overall quality, it's similar to the first one. It also has a lame antagonist called the Wizard instead of a villain from the comics. At least the first Batman serial had the excuse that it was made during World War II. This was also the first on-screen appearance of Commissioner Gordon and Vicky Vale. Dr. Death. Before the Joker, before Hugo Strange, even before Joe Chill first appeared in the comics, the first antagonist to become a recurring character, albeit only for 2 issues, was Dr. Death with his manservants Jabba and Mikhail. In Detective Comics issue 29, Dr. Death creates a fatal pollen extract which he plans on holding rich people ransom with, and in the next issue he plans on getting revenge on Batman for foiling his previous plan. You can tell how early it is in Batman's history because there's a panel where Batman deliberately kills Mikhail by breaking his neck with a swinging kick. The Bat Gyro. The first ever Bat-themed vehicle of Batman's was the Bat Gyro. It only had a few appearances, starting in Detective Comics issue 31 in 1939, where it first looked like a brown bat. Then the next issue it was changed to blue like Batman's other vehicles, and then made brown again in the next issue, and for the last time in Batman issue 35, it was blue again, with the signature Bat's head Batman put on most of his vehicles in the 1940s. I guess that once the Batplane was in the picture, there wasn't much need for a Bat Gyro. Clayface. You might be thinking, yeah, Clayface, that shifter with the gooey brown base form. No, that's the Clayface who slunked into Batman comics in the 1960s. The original Golden Age Clayface, real name Basil Karlo, no doubt an allusion to Boris Karloff, was a character actor who starred in the horror film Dread Castle. When he learned there was going to be a remake and he wouldn't be in it, he accepted this with grace. Nah, I'm just kidding. He wore a mask of clay to conceal his identity and conspired to kill the actors, thinking that this would stop the production. Even if he successfully killed off the leading actors, I doubt that would have stopped the remake being made if the director was John Landis. This was in Detective Comics issue 40 in 1940, and Clayface would make but one more Golden Age appearance 1 year later in Detective Comics issue 49, where he tries to kill again. Tweedledum and Tweedledee. You thought we were finished with Alice in Wonderland characters? Well, here's Tweedledum and Tweedledee. 2 spherical hoodlums who resemble their literary namesakes. They first rolled onto the pages of Detective Comics issue 74, and only made 2 appearances after that. They might have vanished because Batman already had the Penguin when he needed a short, rotund, top-hatted antagonist. Carter Nichols. The Curious Case of Professor Carter Nichols. Since Batman issue 24 in 1944, this peculiar professor would regularly use a hypnosis and eventually a hypnotizing time ray machine that could hypnotize Batman and Robin anytime they went to visit him to get them to share a joint hypnosis adventure together where they would travel through time. or at least imagine traveling through time. This was used by the writers anytime they wanted to send Batman and Robin to another time period. This happened a lot too. You never hear anyone talk about Professor Carter Nichols these days, but in the 40s and 50s he was the 6th most recurring Batman character, behind Batman, Robin, Commissioner Gordon, Alfred and the Joker. It must have been a slow day in Gotham whenever Batman and Robin thought visiting Carter Nichols for a mid-20th century version of a virtual reality escapade was a good enough use of their time. The Cavalier. Here's a fun one. Mortimer Drake thought it would be a stellar idea to dress like a 17th century cavalier and pull off elaborate capers with a rapier that can give people an electric shock. He debuted in Detective Comics issue 81 in 1943 and only made 3 more appearances the next year. I'm glad he was brought back decades later, because why not make Batman face a literal renaissance man? Giant Joker card. Since Detective Comics issue 114 in 1946, a staple of the Joker's hideout has been a giant Joker card for decoration. Somewhere down the line, Batman and Robin took one of these to the Batcave, where it remained one of its 3 most prominent trophies. What are the other 2, you ponder? The Tyrannosaurus Rex. In Batman issue 35 in the year of 1946, Batman travelled to an island with a dinosaur theme park that included mechanical dinosaurs when a Dick Dastardly lookalike took over the metal dinosaurs and cavemen to try and kill Batman and Robin. After surviving the island, Batman took home a mechanical Tyrannosaurus Rex as a souvenir. What I like about this is that this is a pretty inconsequential story in the grand scheme of Batman, but because it's from an early Batman story, it still appears in some iterations of the Batcave to this day. And then there's the Giant Penny, which first appeared alongside the Penny Plunderer in World's Finest Comics issue 30 in 1947. When Joe Coyne, the penny-obsessed criminal, plagued Gotham with penny-themed crimes — Gotham City really is America's loony bin — Batman correctly deduced that he would try to steal from this weird exhibition that also has a huge giant postage stamp of a pissed-off looking Queen Elizabeth. By the end of the story, the Penny Plunderer was caught and got the death penalty, and in later stories the Giant Penny would regularly appear in the Batcave. We don't even know why he took it or who gave it to him, but it's from the 1940s Batman story and it just stuck. If you've got deja vu, it's because there's a different Mad Hatter to cover. Unlike the 1940s Mad Hatter, this one, who originated in Detective Comics issue 230 in 1956, took his Mad Hatter title literally. By that I mean he had an obsession with hats, which drove him to try to steal Batman's cowl as a trophy for his collection. That was his only Golden Age appearance, and I can see why. The Bat-Sub. In 1949, the writers decided, yeah, we might as well give Batman a submarine too. And so the Bat-Sub was christened, or as it was originally known, the Bat-Submarine. It would go on to make an appearance every once in a while when Batman needed a submarine. Firefly. In a 1952 issue of Detective Comics, that being issue 184, Batman and Robin first tackled Firefly, the man of 1,000 lights. Garfield Linz was a self-proclaimed world's foremost lighting effects genius, who decided to become yet another costumed supervillain, with his gimmick being that he uses his special effects knowledge to dazzle people with blinding lights. Like some of the others on this iceberg, he made one Golden Age appearance and stayed out of Batman stories for quite some time. If you want obscure trivia, here's where it gets more obscure than a Batman fan who's actually read the comics. New York World's Fair Comics. It only had 2 issues, and the second issue, published in 1940, had Batman in it. It was the first comic to have both Superman and Batman in it, though not in the same story. New York World's Fair Comics issue 2 had the same structure as the early issues of World's Finest Comics, in that it had a Superman story in the front, a Batman story at the back, and the stories in the middle were for the more obscure characters. Star-Spangled Comics. In issues 65 to 130 of Star-Spangled Comics, Robin was featured in his own stories where he was the focus, though sometimes he and Batman would work together just like any other Batman story. They were similar to regular Batman stories at the time, but they didn't contribute anything that lasted in the Batman mythos, except for arguably one thing, but we'll get to that later: the Monk and Dollar. Very early on in Detective Comics issue 31, when Batman had only existed for a few months, a supernatural element was introduced into Batman, with one of his earliest foes being a vampire called the Monk, and his vampire assistant Dala in the next issue. You can tell this is at the dawn of Batman, not only because it was the first time he used a Batarang, but also because Batman uses a gun in it. John and Mary Grayson. Everyone knows Batman's backstory of his parents being killed in front of him, but the original Robin had a similar backstory. He was part of his family's acrobatic trio, but when the circus owner refused to pay protection money to a mob, the mob sabotaged their trapeze ropes, killing John and Mary, leading Dick to join Batman as Robin. Boss Zuko. The mob boss who orchestrated the assassination of Dick Grayson's parents when the circus they worked at didn't pay protection money. He is to Robin what Joe Chill is to Batman. The same comic where he first appears is also where he gets apprehended to the police by Batman and Robin on their first mission together. Linda Page. Coming from money like Bruce Wayne, Linda Page also dedicated herself to helping people by becoming a nurse. She first appeared in Batman issue 5 and was Bruce's love interest for 2 years before being dropped as a character. She never found out Batman's secret identity and had the honour of appearing in the 1943 Batman serial. Salvatore Maroni. Going back to the origin stories, Salvatore Maroni was the lowlife who acid attacked Harvey Dent/Kent when he successfully prosecuted him in court, which led to him becoming Two-Face. Gilda Kent. Gilda was Harvey Kent/Dent's fiancée and wife after he got plastic surgery. Getting back with Harvey once he overcame his Two-Face phase was also a big part of his happy ending. The Crime Doctor. Dr. Bradford Thorne used his medical knowledge to set up a crime clinic to give medical help to injured criminals. He had but 2 Golden Age bouts with the Bat, once in Detective Comics issue 77 in 1943, and another in Batman issue 18 the same year. The Kitty Car. Catwoman faced Batman with her own superpowered vehicle called the Kitty Car, a feline version of the Batmobile, in Detective Comics issue 122 in 1947. This car used jets, predating any version of the Batmobile that uses jets. Years later, the Kitty Car would make an appearance once in a while.
Cat, I'm a kitty cat, and I dance, and I dance.
The Joker-mobile. In Batman issue 37 in 1946, the Joker started using 2 new vehicles of his own to compete with Batman. One was the Joker-mobile, an oddly shaped white car with the Joker's face plastered on the front. What an ego. It was used a couple more times during the Golden Age, and I'm certain it was used again in future continuities because surely the writers couldn't resist using a Joker-mobile forever. The other was the Joker-copter/Joker plane. At first it was a white flying machine also with the Joker's face on the front and a J painted on its side so you don't forget who it belongs to, like this Machop card I have with the J written on it. It had wings like a plane and a propeller like a helicopter. There was also another Joker plane that was green and a much smaller yellow Joker plane. The Mothmobile. Catwoman and the Joker weren't the only ones to ape Batman's themed car. I just had a lot of animals. Anyway, the Mothmobile appears in the same comic where Killer Moth first appears and also has 2 more appearances in the Golden Age. It's like they had a 3 appearance rule back then. The car was long and has what looks like a giant caterpillar on the bonnet. I like how it's Killer Moth who gets the overcompensation car. Two-Face imposters. Witness, if you will, a story where a copycat of Two-Face commits crimes in his name, further slurring the redeemed reputation of Harvey Dent. Well, that's the story they went with 3 times from 1948 to 1952. Yes, out of the 6 Two-Face stories from the Golden Age, exactly half of them are about an imitator of Two-Face, rather than the real thing. Once with an imposter called Wilkins in Batman issue 50, twice with one called Paul Sloan in Batman issue 68, and thrice with an unoriginal gent named George Blake in Detective Comics issue 187. In recent times there's been an obsession with creating different versions of the Joker, but in the Golden Age it was with Two-Face. Batman of all nations. This was an international confederacy of different countries' equivalents of Batman and Robin. The first 2 members we see arrived 5 years before the Batman of all nations was founded, those being Knight and Squire, who were a British dynamic duo who fought crime dressed as medieval warriors who first met Batman and Robin in Batman issue 62 in 1950. 5 years later, we are introduced to the Batman of all nations in Detective Comics issue 215, which also includes Gaucho of Argentina, Legionary of Italy, Musketeer of France, and Ranger of Australia. And a year before that, in Batman issue 86, there was Man of Bats and Raven, a Native American version of Batman and Robin. Lou Moxon. In a flashback in Detective Comics issue 235, it's revealed that when Joe Chill killed Bruce Wayne's parents, it wasn't just a random encounter with the mugger, even though Joe Chill tried to make it look like that. But instead, Joe Chill was hired by a gangster called Lou Moxon, who was incarcerated for 10 years after Thomas Wayne testified against him in court. In that same comic, Batman tracks down Moxon while wearing his dad's batsuit, leading to this classic panel, Monster Men. These are the result of Hugo Strange's serum in Batman issue 1 that when injected increases the injected in size but limits mental capabilities. Hugo Strange used this to create Monster Men to send to rob banks. Gorilla Boss and Doc Willard. When George Dyke was executed, he was brought back to life when Doc Willard transplanted his brain into the body of a gigantic gorilla, so that he could continue his criminal activities as the Gorilla Boss of Gotham. This story was printed in Batman issue 75 in 1953. The Crazy Quilt. This was a costume crook who dressed like Roy Chubby Brown and at first was a foe of a forgotten group called the Boy Commandos. Sounds like something written by Joseph Kony. After the original run ended, the Crazy Quilt was repurposed as an antagonist for Robin in one issue of Star-Spangled Comics, namely issue 123.
I've had a vasectomy, which don't work, just changes the colour of your fucking kids.
Newspaper comics. Just like Superman, Batman also got his own newspaper comics, but they weren't nearly as successful or long-running as the Superman comic strips that I went over in my Golden Age Superman Iceberg video. The first series, called Batman and Robin, lasted from 1943 to 1946, and there was a second short-lived one also called Batman and Robin that began and ended in 1953, The Joker's Comedy of Errors. This was a story from Batman issue 66 from 1951. The comic has become notorious and one of the most well-known 1950s Batman tales, all because of the frequent use of the word boner. Back in the 50s, boner meant a mistake, a blunder, a foul-up. And this comic is about those kinds of boners, and it doesn't just say boner a couple of times, but constantly. Walk Street, Joker pulls biggest boner of the year!
So, laugh my boner, will they? I'll show them. I'll show them how many boners the Joker can make.
Gotham Sea will rue the day it mentioned the word boner. Stung by his boner, Joker stages another boner crime. What does he mean, Bruce? How can he force you into a boner? Let's continue our study of the greatest boners of all time. Are you ready for another boner crime, Joker? Those boner crimes are making us look bad. And I'm worried about the boner he's readying for you. Batman's greatest boner. Bah! Confound that Batman. It is well that I'm ready to trick him into his boner. Then the tables will be turned. You committed a boner, Joker. You were so busy forcing me into a boner, you forgot you were committing one yourself. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's hope we've the last of things like boners. You get it? He said boner, and that means an erect phallus these days. At the lowest point of the iceberg, we get characters and vehicles so lost to time that they haven't even had merchandise made of them. Julie Madison, a wealthy actress who shares her first appearance with the Mad Monk and also appeared alongside Clayface in his first appearance. She only had a handful of appearances in the first few years of Batman and occupied a similar role to Linda Page in that she was also in love with Bruce Wayne without knowing his alter ego of Batman. She was written out in Detective Comics issue 49 when she ends her relationship with Bruce for not choosing a career and making something of himself. This adds a sense of tragedy to Batman at this point because his dedication to his Batman persona means he can't get too involved with anyone romantically. What's even worse is that she even says that she'll come back to him if he ever changes, but it's evident that he never will. Wong. An early supporting character, Wong was Batman's inside guy in Gotham's Chinatown. He only had 2 appearances, both in 1940, with Batman introducing himself to Wong in Detective Comics issue 35, and Wong calling on Batman in issue 39. Mr. Haley. The owner of the circus Dick Grayson and his parents worked at as acrobats. His refusal to pay Zuko protection money led to Zuko having Dick's parents taken out. Pierre Antal, a European painter who moved to Gotham. In 1940, in Detective Comics issue 42, he was targeted by a one-time villain called the Painter of Death, and a second time by another one-time villain in Batman issue 38, 6 years later. The Three Devils. These ruffians were 3 acrobats who wore matching devil outfits and used their skills to steal jewels. They had but one Golden Age bout in 1941's Detective Comics issue 50. They were brought back one more time 16 years later in the Silver Age issue of Batman. The Wrecker. Having but one appearance in Detective Comics issue 197 in 1953, the Wrecker was a shrouded figure who orchestrated a campaign of crime and even hijacked a TV station to declare his hatred of Batman. It turned out the Wrecker's real name was Dwight Farrow, a desperate man up to his neck in gambling debts whose plan included a ploy that included faking his own death in an insurance fraud scam. Superman radio show appearance. While Batman didn't have his own radio program like Superman did, Batman and Robin did occasionally make appearances in the Adventures of Superman radio show, which I also brought up in my Golden Age Superman video. King of Cats. In 1952, Batman readers were introduced to Catwoman's brother, Carl Kyle, in Batman issue 69. He's just a male version of Catwoman, replacing her since by then Catwoman had reformed. This self-proclaimed King of Cats had only a short-lived career though because he saw the light and changed his criminal ways in the same story. Mirror Man. A late Batman foe cropping up in 1954 in Detective Comics issue 203, Floyd Ventress escaped prison because he used the reflection of a broken mirror to dazzle one of the prison guards for a second, which somehow gave him time to climb over the prison wall on a rope. It's no wonder Gotham has crime wave after crime wave. Not believing his luck, Floyd's use of mirrors to escape him makes him start identifying as Mirror Man. Between the incompetence of its police and the impractical, gimmicky supercriminals, Batman must feel like Gotham's special needs carer. Professor Radium. In The Strange Case of Professor Radium in 1942's Batman issue 8, Henry Ross was a brilliant professor who managed to resurrect himself with the power of radium. If there are any scientists watching, by all means tell me if that's scientifically accurate. After his resurrection, he found that his touch was lethal, and while at first he tried to find a cure, it didn't take long until he was driven murderously mad. Batman and Robin 3000. There have been quite a few incarnations of Batman through the years that speculate what a Batman of the future would look like, and the earliest was in 1944's Batman issue 26, where the year is 3000 and two guys called Brain and Ricky are inspired by a 20th century audio recording of Batman and Robin to become the 31st century's version of them to fight off an invading Warlord's robot army. I like how this is from World War II and the Warlord's name is Führer. Gee, I wonder what the inspiration for his name was. Ali Babel. Now here's a curious character. Ali Babel was a world-class chatterbox whose main character trait is that he talked a lot, much to the annoyance of everyone around him. This absolute Chad had the appearance and behaviour of a cartoon character. Ali was a real wild card and would cause chaos for criminals, Batman, and anyone unlucky enough to be caught in his whirlwind of antics. I can imagine him being voiced by Rob Paulson, and it wouldn't surprise me if the creators of The Mask took inspiration from him. He only had 2 appearances, which were in Batman issue 30 in 1945 and 34 the following year. He just showed up twice, caused mayhem for everybody he interacted with, and vanished without a trace. What a lad. Wingman. In the 65th issue of Batman in 1951, an unfortunate fall left Robin an invalid, and for one issue, Batman got a replacement called Wingman to stand in for Robin while he healed. Once Robin was back to normal, Wingman went to Europe to be one of Europe's versions of Batman. Barbara and Anthony Gordon. The only 2 of Commissioner Gordon's family members seen during the Golden Age are his wife Barbara and his son Anthony. Barbara Gordon had 2 appearances during the Golden Age, once in World's Finest Comics issue 53, and a second time the next year in Batman issue 71. Anthony, or Tony, only had 1 appearance, also in World's Finest Comics issue 53. The Bat Train. In Batman issue 95 in 1955, Gotham's police wanted Batman to assist with their anti-crime week, where he would tour cities giving presentations while showing his vehicles and equipment. The cities thought it best to use taxpayer money so that Batman could travel in style with the Bat Train, which would haul his Bat vehicles from city to city. It's cute how they gave Batman his own choo-choo. The Mole. In World's Finest Comics issue 80, T.B. Hara, aka The Mole, ran a construction company who was funneling public funds meant for a sewer project into digging a tunnel into a bank so he can steal from it, but he was apprehended by the joint forces of Superman, Batman, and Robin, who were taking on the role of company auditors. The Clock. The only recurring villain Robin faced who was created just for Star-Spangled Comics was the Clock. From 1947 to 1949, he appeared in Star-Spangled Comics issues 70, 74, 79, and 97. He was called the Clock because he had an obsession with timekeeping and clocks, and his bald head and moustache made his face resemble a clock. Kind of.
Pretty lame, Millhouse.
The Robinmobile. Batman wasn't the only one to get his own car named after his superhero persona. This was only used twice during the Golden Age, first in 1951 in Star-Spangled Comics issue 113, and then in Batman issue 101 in 1956. At first it looked like a scaled-down Batmobile with a big hard R at the front, and in its other appearance it was painted red. It's no wonder it didn't catch on, because look at that disapproving expression on Batman. How'd you like that? You now know all the key details of Batman at his earliest stage of existence. My next video is going to be about something other than Golden Age comics. If there's anything you'd like covered, tell me. If you want to talk elsewhere, you can follow me on everything else I have. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Uncle Arthur follows Batman